Should one stick to American style of placing punctuation marks within quotes if one uses the American spelling? According to Wikipedia, there are two ways to use punctuation marks when it comes to quoting. Basically, we have the British style where punctuation marks that don't come from the quoted material is put outside the quote, like I just did. In the American style, on the other hand, punctuation marks that belongs to the original sentence that the quoted material is put within should be placed within the quote itself, like I just did. Now, I really prefer the British style since this is the way I've always done it, including when I write in my native language. However, at the same time, I prefer to use the American spelling and usage of words. Is this mixing behavior on my part acceptable? It is mentioned in the Wikipedia article linked to above that many American style guides specific to certain specialties, such as legal writing and linguistics, prefer British style. However, is there a general rule, or maybe a strong recommendation? For example, if I'm just writing an essay or, I don't know, a blog post, regarding how I can mix the different spellings and punctuation mark rules.
The spelling you prefer doesn't have to determine the punctuation style, but if you want to use the British punctuation style, using British spelling could work as a clue to the reader that your punctuation isn't incorrect. Or, depending on the reader, it might just make it look like your punctuation and spelling are incorrect. My own personal rule, as an American, is to put the punctuation inside the quotes unless that results in ambiguity as to whether the punctuation is or isn't part of the quoted text. For example, the sentence, "When the dialog box appears, type password," seems less ambiguous than, "When the dialog box appears, type password."
Larry Trask deals with this question comprehensively here. Scroll down to the section beginning. Finally, there remains the problem of whether to put other punctuation marks inside or outside the quotation marks.
If you're following American spelling and usage conventions, then you probably ought to adhere to American punctuation as well, for sake of consistency. The Chicago Manual of Style and Robert Bringhurst's Elements of Typographic Style are two sources for advice on usage and punctuation that support American style, whereas if you devise your own hybrid style, you might wind up with a hodgepodge of exceptions and idiosyncratic affectations. That's not illegal, you're quite free to follow your linguistic muse in the direction it leads you, but your readers may suffer for it. It's worth noting that British style isn't necessarily easy to apply. British placement depends on whether the quoted material is complete or a fragment. Making that determination in some cases can become a matter of subjective opinion, in which case the American style starts to make a strong case for itself.
Referring to this way of placing quotation marks as the American style is a shorthand for something like the style specified by the style sheets used by the majority of the publishers based in the US, but not many publishers that are based elsewhere. When one reflects on that, one can see that this is something entirely independent of spelling, and that there is nothing inconsistent about using American spelling and the British way of using quotation marks in the same text. While American spelling is deeply ingrained in American life, this is not the case with the American way of combining quotation marks with other punctuation. The American style is imposed and enforced from above by the publishers. When writing something that is to be published by a US publisher, one may have no choice but to go along, but that doesn't mean that, if one regards this style as irrational, one has to follow it otherwise, even in an American context.
If you want to support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing.